Well, welcome back to Law&Crime Network. This is really an unbelievable set of circumstances here. I'm honored once again to have Julie Rendelman with me, who's going to help break us down for the next 2 hours, this case. Julie, I was telling you offset, I've been doing homicide work for 30 years, and when you look at this guy's background, he's got 5 murders now on his jacket, and listen to the manner in which he took these young girls' lives, in which he's facing a death penalty now, it's downright chilling and disturbing.
Yeah, to say the least. I mean, we've both been doing homicides almost the majority of our careers. I've never kind of come across anyone as callous and with such, I hate to say, lack of redeeming qualities. And so I think the jury's going to be hard-pressed once again to find any reason to spare his life.
Yeah, Julie, actually, you know, we love our people that are in the chat room on the Law&Crime Network, and get the app if you haven't, and make sure you tell your friends, because that allows things like me and Julie to be able to come on and break these cases down. But Tostet, one of our chat room people, put it best, in my opinion. Real life is far more terrifying than the movies.
She is correct, and it's unbelievable that they're hearing this the second time. I guess they're hearing this because a previous jury already found that he was guilty and deserved the death penalty, but for some prosecutorial misconduct, we're back at it for a second time.
Yeah, and you know, it's we talked about this last week, and it also victimizes the family again, the families, if you will, all the people that have a vested interest in this, not to have to come back here and do this dance again. But nevertheless, here we are. You got to be careful when you're a prosecutor that you don't go over that line and cause something like this to happen. But I think it's going to be a, as we say, toot sweet death penalty conviction for a second time. Julie Rendelman, we're here at the Law&Crime Network breaking this case down of Mr. Kirkland, and we will be back on the other end of a break, and we'll break it down some more. Egats, man, this Julie, this is unbelievable. This egats, I mean, wow. I think we're at a spot right now in this testimony where, first of all, these detectives are doing a really good job hanging in there. We've reviewed many police statements and witness statements, and sometimes this guy's giving a little. It's like fishing, taking a little back, and now I think we're at a spot right now where he's going to admit to one more body. Right. So, what's your overall feeling about all this?
That he's guilty. I mean, one of the things I will take exception to is, you know, we talk about that second crack at the apple, and I understand that the frustration of thinking about going back in and having to relitigate the issue of death penalty. But remember how huge and important a right the defendant has to a fair trial. And when it comes to the death penalty, when the prosecutor does something wrong, which they did, they overstepped, just like we talked about, then we must have an option for the defendant to be able to go back and, you know, litigate it again, even though it must break the hearts of, you know, the victim's family in this case. We just have to understand that needs to be as painful as it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the rule of law applies to everybody, and my problem isn't that I agree with the court's decision in the case. Sure. When you're imposing the ultimate penalty, I've been in that position. You have been in that position. You need to be able to do it right so it doesn't come back. And prosecutorial closing statements are the #1 reason cases come back on death penalty cases. So you got to be careful. Right.
And and look, I mean, it was one line or 2 lines that they went too far, but it went over that line, and that's why we're here. And unfortunately, I think we're going to have the same result, but that's why we're back here again.
Yeah. Well, this year at the Law&Crime Network, gavel-to-gavel coverage. I'm here with Julie Rendelman. We're going to go to a break, and then we're going to come back on the other end with this fascinating case. It's great being on with you, and we'll see you in a few. Okay, you're at the Law&Crime Network, gavel-to-gavel coverage. We are on break in the Anthony Kirkland death penalty case. Everyone here is freaked out, even on off-screen, on-screen, in the chat room. But let's go to Top Crime Stories with Anthony Velez, and I'll be back with my great guest, Julie Rendelman, shortly.
Here are today's top crime stories trending on lawandcrime.com and across the country. 2 opportunistic criminals were arrested for allegedly looting homes evacuated due to the car fire in California. 25-year-old Jay Ball and 19-year-old Jack Fannin were arrested after police found evidence tying the pair to several burglaries in Redding. The wildfire has destroyed over 650 homes and prompted the evacuation of thousands of residents. Ball and Fanning were charged with suspicion of looting in an evacuated area, entering a disaster area, and conspiracy to commit a felony. A woman in Arkansas was arrested after she allegedly told police she fatally shot her husband in a dispute over pornography. 69-year-old Patricia Hill allegedly killed her 65-year-old husband, Frank, after an argument about pornography he ordered via the television guide. Hill reportedly canceled the order, but Frank ordered another salacious video before his wife shot him 2 times. Hill was charged with felony probable cause for capital murder and will have her first court appearance next week.
I would kill your children first.
Really?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
A man in Canada is facing charges after video surfaced of a racist encounter where he threatened to kill an Indian man's family during a dispute outside of a Canadian Walmart. 47-year-old Dale Robertson was charged with dangerous driving and failing to remain at the scene of an accident after he hit the unidentified man with his car and threatened him in Stony Creek.
Canadian citizen.
Show me. Prove it. I don't believe you. You don't talk like a Canadian.
You don't like...
I don't. I'm racist as well. I don't like you.
Authorities say Robertson might face additional hate crime charges. Those were today's top crime stories. I'm Anthony Velez for Law and Crime.
Well, welcome back. Julie Rendelman is trying to get me to laugh before I come back on with you. She says I got too much energy or not enough energy.
You have more sugar than my kids today.
I did not have a drop of sugar.
You are hyped up.
Yeah.
And I cannot keep up today.
You will, because you're here, and that's why I'm hyped up. A great guest like you. Julie, what is up with this clip of that last thing we saw in the top crime stories? I love these top crime stories, all these little vignettes of these crazy people. You saw what happened there. I mean, should this be a hate crime?
It should. I mean, here's the problem. This is becoming all too common. I mean, we're seeing this every day. I think, in the advent of the video and in the advent of kind of the political climate, I think we're going to see it more and more. Look, thankfully it didn't escalate to something more, as we saw in the last case. There was a road rage incident that ended up with someone being stabbed and killed. Thankfully, nothing more happened. Is there going to be an argument that this is simply a right of, a First Amendment right of speech? But it seems to have gone a little bit over that. We will see.
Here's my prediction. This case gets thrown out. It's not a hate crime. My opinion is when they pass this statute, and it's a great statute, it's a great law, the precipitating event has to be done. That is the crime, for the purposes of hatred towards a race. It was never meant or intended for people that have, say, and do unsavory comments that weren't really the motivating factor for the crime itself. To me, this is an argument that got out of control.
Right. I mean, the question becomes whether or not it also rises to the level of menacing. We saw that in the Long Island case, when the guy was fighting with a woman on the subway, and there came a point where he stood up and became more aggressive, and so his words, coupled with kind of his aggression, added to a crime versus just simply the hate words that he was saying. And so I don't know that I disagree with you, but either way, it's hard to watch, and it seems to be all too common. Yeah,
it's funny you should bring that up about being all too common, because we've been around the block for a while, me longer than you, of course.
Way longer.
But nevertheless, I was just talking to a psychologist type person today, and asking hashtag, what is going on with the civility in our culture and the things that are happening? And they are telling me that there is demonstrable scientific evidence of a community breakdown. People are stressed out, and they're committing more and more of these vile things and hateful statements. And the psychiatrists are seeing a lot more people on the couch and a lot more meds going out.
Look, it doesn't, again, and without going down the political road, I think there is a political atmosphere that is incredibly divisive, whichever way you choose to be, whatever side you choose to be on. And I think it is creating more anger and more hostility. I think that, coupled with, again, the idea that people are filming everything. There is nowhere to go anymore other than to be filmed no matter what you're doing. So I think those coupled together, you're going to see a lot more of it, and there's a lot more to come. Okay.
Well, Julie, I appreciate that analysis. I think we are back in court, and we can go live in this case of Anthony Kirkland, death penalty. Let's see what's going on. Welcome back. We are listening to the statement that the defendant had given to the police. These detectives, I'm here with Julie Rendelman, and we were just talking off camera. You have no idea, folks, or maybe some of you do, the skill set that is required to take a critical interview like this. I have sometimes had my blood pressure so high, my head almost popped off my shoulders.
When you watch some of these detectives.
When you watch some of it, either they're not asking the right questions or they're continually interrupting the person and not letting them speak. I've literally had guys start to confess, and they stopped them and said, "No, I didn't ask you. Go back. What's your social security number?" You really like this guy.
I think he's wonderful, and I think one of the things is you want to be careful about leading. You want the words to come from the defendant, because you don't want the defense attorney at the end of the day to say you fed him what he's saying and you gave him those answers. And he is just, you know, throughout each murder he goes through and allowing the defendant to give him those answers, you know, whether it be the color of the individual's skin or what the person did for an occupation or what the police would expect to find at you know, where the individual was hurt. He is just I think he's doing a fantastic job of just letting this defendant speak, and his tone is also, you know, really that of which is going to allow for a defendant to open up.
Yeah, and we were talking also about one of the most skilled guys I ever worked with. One of the arguments that was used, the only one the defense could come up with, who used to always get a statement, was that he was too kind and nice to the defendants.
Right. I remember I was told once that it looks like I'm giving the guy milk and cookies, and I was like, well, I mean, you have to, you know, as a prosecutor, if you're questioning a defendant, or as a detective, you have to gauge who it is you're speaking to make a determination of the best way to question them.
Absolutely. Listen, if you are talking negatively or yelping down at their throats, you're not going to get the statement. So these are really skilled detectives that know what they're doing in this case. And thank God, because this guy, plain and simple, is a monster. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to the Law and Crime Network. I'm here with Julie Rendelman. She just had a little bit of my melon. I didn't get any, but I'm glad you did. It was a tasty, wasn't it?
It was very good.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
Thank you for the melon.
Yeah. Hey, Julie, listen, this cop is really off the hook. He's really good. Here's some things that I noted that he did that I thought were really skillful. I'm not just going to accept that you killed someone. So he's kind of laying the law down a little bit with the guy, but he's got to be careful he doesn't make the guy close up and not talk. And you don't have to please me. This is great for courtroom down the road as to whether or not he's being coerced. And he won't go to the scene. Why is that? Well, of course he'd take him to the scene, but he doesn't want him to invoke. So he wants to get that data right now. I think he's great. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I was laughing because part of the reason he said he didn't want to take him because the defendant said that if he left, he would flee. And so then the defendant said to him, he goes, I meant earlier I would flee, not now. Now take me. So, but he's cool. He wants to keep him there, and he wants to keep him there as long as possible to get as much from him as possible.
Right, and you know, I also note that this is one of the reasons prosecutors and police don't want data out into the public, that he would be aware of information and regurgitate it back.
Exactly.
This cop is actually getting him, you tell me rather than me tell you.
And he is giving him such details, and he is, you know, making sure the detail, as we said before, he's making sure the details come from him and not from the detective.
Okay, great, Julie, thank you so much. Anthony Kirkland case, death penalty, is about as bad as you can get. 5 bodies on this guy's jacket. We're going to take a quick break and come back on the other end. Welcome back to Law and Crime Network. That is the end of a compelling day. As a trial lawyer for 30 years, I got to tell you, this was fascinating to me, as I know it is my guest, Julie Rendelman. We are in the Kirkland death penalty case. And just a quick rundown for our viewers who may have just come on, and for our great and awesome chatters that always you know, give us some great insights. Julie, this guy, I alluded to this before, was convicted previously of killing another woman in 1987, setting her on fire, and I believe she may have been alive when she was set on fire, and only received 16 years in prison. And why is that relevant? Well, he got back out, and 4 other women died in a really brutal, horrific, and I would say twisted way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the original case, I don't know the facts that led to the determination that he would plead to manslaughter, because he didn't plead to the actual murder.
Right.
And so that I don't know if it was based on the strength or weaknesses of the case that they allowed him to plead to that. You know, but for that, in a sense, we probably wouldn't be here today, because had he been convicted of a murder, he would have been in for a much longer period of time. As we said earlier, I think, you know, it's look, it's not usual that we see someone as, sociopathic and comfortable with their crimes as he is. And when we listen to him speak to the detective, I think, we're all kind of in awe at not just how the detective is handling him with such precision, but how comfortable the defendant is talking about the deaths and mutilation of these women and these children.
Yeah. We have some great clips in this case, and on the other end of this, I want to talk to you about something I think is really an important public service an announcement to anybody that's out there to avoid or how to get around and prevent being the victim of a guy like this. Let's go to one of the clips, and we'll talk to you on the other end. Welcome back. So you're listening to one of the officers that had taken a statement, and just previous to this, we were listening to another one. These cops, Julie Rendelman, are literally heroes, and as a prosecutor type who has listened to thousands of hours of interviews of cops, these guys are on top of their game, and it's refreshing to see.
It is. I hate saying that I don't often hear a detective do such a fantastic job when it comes to taking an interrogation of a defendant. But these two kind of make up for all the bad experiences I think both of us have had over the years with those that don't seem to know exactly, A, how to get the statement, and B, how to get someone to keep talking.
Right. Keeping people talking is the key. Listen, folks, we talked about this before. What can you do to prevent this from happening? And there is no right or wrong answer other than you can go online to police departments, talk about target hardening, being aware of your surroundings and circumstances, because, Julie, you can be victimized randomly like this by a person who's intent on committing these kind of crimes. Don't travel alone. Make sure you have emergency devices, your phone, 911, whatever weapons you're allowed to carry lawfully in your state. No, I'm sorry. There are people out there that mean to do harm, and you've got to be thinking about it constantly. And to me, the biggest problem is that people aren't thinking about it and want to put themselves into a bad scenario they can't get out of.
I hear you, although unfortunately the crimes happen, and sometimes, we do the utmost to try to protect our children, protect ourselves. And even with that, we're unsuccessful. We hope that but I think the awareness of our surroundings is the most important thing that you brought up.
Awareness of the surroundings. Julie Rendelman agrees with me. We're going to go to a break, and on the other end, we'll come back and discuss this case. Welcome back. We are on break for the day in this horrible Anthony Kirkland case, and I'm with Julie Rendelman. Julie, we were talking about target hardening and being aware of your surroundings. Many of the cases when I was prosecutor, we would go out. Of course, you learn from the cases themselves. We would go out and we would talk to the community. And we talked a lot about being being aware of your surroundings, as well as other certain things. For example, fight, scream, don't ever consent to get into a car, be dragged into the woods. Nobody means well when they're trying to do that.
I mean, sure. I mean, look, as parents, I remember we used to see those shows as what your kid would do if someone lured them away with offers of ice cream and candy, and the parents that, thought that their kids knew better were the first to have the kid kind of come into the ice cream truck where they didn't belong. And so, unfortunately, it starts at home, and it starts when your kids are very young, and teaching them, that there are certain things that they have to. I hate to say that you have to be suspect to everyone, but you really do, because a lot of times, we even joke about, I never used to have the name of my son's, name on his backpack, because God forbid someone should come up to him and say, hey, and have him think that there's some familiarity, not realizing that it's just the name on his backpack that allows someone to feel comfortable enough to approach a child. Mm-hmm. And so these little things that sound so ridiculous are those things that kind of can get at least a child in a situation that they can't get out of. I mean, one would hope that as your kids get older, they're learning those things that we've taught them as a child. Unfortunately, there are times that someone is going to be alone in circumstances, even adults that are alone in circumstances, and the issue really is, do they have a game plan? If they're drinking, do they have a game plan of someone to contact to let them know that they need a ride? Things like that that people assume, I don't need it, it's never going to happen to me, but it does happen, and we see it happening, and I'm sure as heck that these parents never thought this would happen to their children.
Yeah, and it's that level of a feeling that doesn't happen to me or here
Right.
that happens elsewhere that I've noticed have actually led to the victimization, because as Julie is talking about, people aren't, as we would call, target hardening themselves. And it's about the dialogue. And every community and virtually every police department that I know probably throughout the country has tips and what to do to protect yourself. And you should especially go over that with your kids, because, Julie, we have another scourge that we didn't have to deal with before, but I think sets kids up, and even adults.
Right.
Let's be honest. With Tinder and the social media, you are asking for problems if you are not really, really careful and making sure that you don't know what is on the other side. And these predators and bad guys, especially with kids, are in the game rooms, the chat rooms.
They're everywhere.
And they know where you are. I would always
Right.
tell my wife, don't put on social media that we're like having a great time down the shore, or
Right,
like
because
you're
it
telling
indicates that
people.
your house is available for, for a lovely burglary. And, absolutely. I mean, that's why, look, social media, I think, is a dangerous, dangerous thing. We can go further and just remind even kids and their parents that anything you put on social media, even if it's not giving a criminal, advice as to when they should raid your home, it's also, remember, when you put anything on social media, it's there permanently. You can't get rid of it, So something you put out as a child that you think is just innocuous and nothing is there for the taking when you're an adult and trying to get a job or any of these things. So I think social media is an incredibly dangerous thing, and you need to be careful how you teach your kids how to use it.
Yeah, I like to think that there is no privacy when it comes to your kids and their social media accounts. But listen, this is a really important conversation that we're having, regardless of what you think and the tips that we've given, even some of them about being just aware. Go to the websites, talk to your kids, talk to your wife, I talk to my wife all the time. She thinks I'm a freak. She says, oh, you think we're in an open space in an airport.
Right.
And I'm telling her, I hate being here because there's no perimeter. Any bad guy can come up here. They haven't gone through security. And we were at the Fort Lauderdale airport just prior to the actual shooting where something like that happened. So when you're in the business and you see these things happen, you have a different kind of awareness as a law enforcement officer that people will call you a freak, but actually protects you.
I think you have to, distinguish the difference between paranoia and being smart about
Right.
your surroundings. It's one thing to refuse to go into a plane in an airport or an open space because you're scared you're going to get shot. It's another thing to always be cognizant of those around you and who's with you and who's around you, to know kind of what your game plan is if, God forbid, something
Right.
happens.
I'm not advocating paranoia, but I am advocating preparedness. And as cops would say, your head on a swivel, always watching your surroundings and what's going on around you. They're experts at doing it, and we should become a little target hardened ourselves. Listen, guys, this is a fascinating case here in the Kirkland matter. I got the great Julie Rendelman with me. She's a great experience, great trial lawyer, prosecution side, defense. I love it. Let's go back and look at another clip of the officer, and we'll talk on the other end. Welcome back, guys, to the Law&Crime Network. Well, we've been listening to this really horrific testimony all day long, and I say this all the time when I'm on. When you do this work, you got to have a little fun, too. You got to be able to have perspective and stand back so we're not paranoid, right, Julie Rendelman, as you indicated before. And we have the great Aaron Keller, who apparently is in the chat room, the little rascal, is causing all sorts of problems because I had talked about the sauce to cheese ratio of pizza. Now, everyone is asking me in this chat room, Julie, what is it? And I have an answer.
Do you know the exact?
You know what? I can tell you this. You know it when you see it. It's like that definition of pornography. And here I have given a picture on Instagram, as you can see.
Oh, interesting.
You know the difference between pornography and art. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things you may not be able to do it with exactitude, but you know it when you see it. So, Aaron Keller, there is your answer. You go to Bob Bianchi, the dean, I think you call me, of all humanity. You go to the chat room. Guys, go into that chat room. The Law&Crime Network is an excellent resource, not only for law, because when Aaron is far more better at the game of law than he is about cheese to pizza to gravy ratio, Julie.
You're giving him way too much credit, but
Yeah, I may be. So there you go, Aaron. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back on the other end with some more testimony. Well, talk about Pandora's box. Now we're talking about, is it really gravy or is it sauce? And I don't even get into that debate because we all know it's gravy, period. End of story.
Gravy,
full
of course.
stop. Hey, Julie, listen, now we'll get back to that serious note, and appreciate all of you bearing with us and all the great commentary in the chat room. Got to take a break from this stuff, but getting back to this case, the Anthony Kirkland case, we had been talking earlier about the idea that he had pled to a manslaughter charge, and, it gets to the discretion of the prosecutor many times. Of course, the evidence in the case and all those things, but many times in some jurisdictions, I never did it. If you committed a homicide, you either pled to homicide or you went to trial, but other places do downgrade them because they may have heavy caseloads and they don't have enough judges to try cases, and you can see results like this potentially.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, we did every case is different, and so, you know, and the facts are unique. And remember, you know, a lot of times when we're dealing with homicide cases, we're also dealing with the victim's family. And I'm not saying that they're the ones who decide what the results are of the case, but sometimes potentially when you don't have the strongest case, the input of the victim's family may help you to have a resolution that is short of going to trial, which potentially you might lose, and instead there might be some kind of balancing in terms of an individual getting time in jail, but not the amount that the family might want. And so, again, every case is different. You know, most cases obviously go to trial because these are, you know, not victimless crimes, and someone's dead, and someone has to pay for it if, in fact, they're responsible. But, you know, I don't know exactly what happened in this manslaughter case as to whether or not he was young, whether or not it was that the facts were weak. I'm not sure what led them to give such a, I hate to say 16 years for the death and burning of a body seems awfully low.
Yeah, and you know, you bring up a really good point about the victims and what their wishes are, and of course, again, all those indictments that you get start either the state or the government or the, you know, versus the person, the defendant, as opposed to the victim's family. But their input is very valuable, and sometimes I've had many families in homicide cases say, I can't go through, you know, a trial and relive this. And I mean, I would take that into consideration, but I would try to explain to them. I just had I guess from being an assistant prosecutor and trying homicide cases, a knee-jerk reaction when I became the person ultimately making the call on every case that, no, this is too serious to plea bargain.
It depends on the case. Again, you know, there's certain cases where, you know, you may have the victim's family telling you they don't want to go forward, and at the end of the day, you have to tell them, I appreciate what you have to say, but this case needs to be tried if he's not going to take, you know, the top count. There are other cases where, because there's some mitigation or some facts that are unique to it, that may allow you to take the victim's, you know, desires more into consideration than other cases.
And of course, Julie, the fact of the matter is, with a case like this, I am absolutely convinced in my mind, I don't have that case file in front of me, that back in 1987, those prosecutors and those police officers could not have possibly imagined the kind of character and monster that this guy Kirkland is. And had they would have gone all the way to the max. But unfortunately, he got out, killed 4 people. Let's get back into the courtroom and watch a clip and talk on the other end. You're listening to a clip of previous testimony in the Anthony Kirkland case. They are on break. They will be back. Death penalty case, 5 bodies. He's being looked at right now for 2, a 13, 14-year-old, 2 beautiful, innocent kids that he abducted, tortured, sexually assaulted, murdered. Previously had gotten the death penalty. It got reversed, and we're back in the penalty phase again. So I say it's going to be a pretty quick, again, second conviction. I've had Julie Rendelman with me for the last couple of hours. Julie, thank you as always for the great expert advice. It's not only fun to have you on, both on camera to give us great advice, but also a lot of laughs, you know, behind the scenes.
Off.
Yes, and I want to thank all of those people who are watching the Law&Crime Network and all of those in the chat room who support us, and please let your friends know, gavel to gavel coverage. You can't get better legal analysis and better trials than what we have here.